What's up? Welcome back. In this episode, you'll see how to solve day 6 of the Advent of Code 2022 with Ruby. This one is called Tuning Trouble, and the idea is that the elves are going to give you some communication device, and you need to figure out how that device is going to communicate, and it's supposed to be like broken. And so we're going to look at some raw data stream buffers and then try to determine when sort of the start of a packet start, or like where in the stream of information the packet is actually starting. So we're going to get a bunch of strings there, or our input is going to be one super long string. And our goal is to figure out where there are 4 consecutive letters that are unique. And so if we look at this first example, we have M, J, Q, and then J repeats. So the first 4 characters are not unique because we have J repeating. And then after that, we have J, P, Q, and so Q is now repeating, and then we have an M again. So this is the first time that we see 4 unique letters is J, P, Q, M. So the start of this packet we would say is like 7 because it's the 4 characters that are unique plus whatever buffer was in the beginning. So we're given some examples here with telling us where the first marker is happening. And what we need to do is figure out based on some really long inputs. This is going to be our input. It's just one ginormous string of characters. And so the first thing we want to do is open up day 6. So we're going to say, okay, and here we'll say require rspec auto run. And we want to rspec.describe. We'll just say this is for day 6. And we're going to say it works for the example cases. All right, so what we want to do is expect that marker for this thing is going to equal the number 5. Okay, we can do it. Let's do it for just a couple of these examples. We'll grab this one and say, okay, we want this use case also. And now we should be able to just run this. So we're going to jump over here and say Ruby day 6, and we have a failing test. Good, undefined method marker. Let's go make our marker method. And that's going to take some input. And if we run our test again, now we're going to have some unexpected. We expected 5, but we got 0. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to split up our input into characters. And then we need to figure out where the first 4 consecutive characters are unique. And so the way I think we can do this is say like input.chars. So that'll give us all the characters. Each cons. So each consecutive 4. So each cons is an enumerable method that will give you each consecutive group. So if we look at each cons here, this is a handy method. So if we look at the range from 1 to 5 and we have each consecutive, then you'll notice that we're going to get the first 1, 2, 3, then we see 2, 3, 4, then we see 3, 4, 5. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to inspect each 4 consecutive groups. And for each of those, we want to see if they are unique. So what we can do is take each of the arrays that are going to be yielded by each cons, and we can map those into a set. So again, we're going to require the set class, or the set gem. And now that we have sets, let's actually look at what we get back here. So we're going to have several sets. So the first one, BVW, is only showing us BVW as a set because when we're talking about a set, requires that its elements are all unique. So if we take the first 4 characters from this string here, BVWB, and we convert it into a set, we're only going to have BVW because B appears twice, and a set can only have unique values. So now what we can do is we can look at the length of the set, and if the length is not equal to 4, then we know that this set has some repeating values in it. Then when we look at the next set, we'll notice that it has 4. And so what we need to do is figure out, okay, if we get to the second set in the list and it has 4, then we need to add 4 plus 1 for the first character of the character sequence. So here what we can do is we can say find index. So we want to find the index where the set's size is equal to 4. And that should give us back, in this case, it should give us back 2. Or I guess, yeah, 1, because 0, it's 0 indexed. Okay, so then we want to take that and we want to add to it the number 4. Okay, so if we run this again, now we have a passing test. Fantastic. All right, so let's grab all of our input, and just at the bottom here, we can just call p marker with our input, and then run our Ruby code again. And our output is here. We also have the tests running, but 1142, if we come back over here and search for 1142, that is the answer for part 1. So that is the solution for part 1. Now in part 2, it says your device's communication system is correctly detecting packets, but it still isn't working. It looks like it needs also to do messages. So messages start with 14 distinct characters instead of 4. So it's the same exact solution here, but the only difference is that we want to use 14 instead of 4. So what I'm going to do is take in a length argument here. And so we want chunks that are that length. In our example tests here, we can pass in 4, and this should still continue working. And then we also need to check that the set size, when we're finding the index of the correctly unique 14 character set, is also going to have the same length. And then we also need to add the same sort of length or offset. So those markers are going to continue to work. And then there's some other examples for part 2. So we can expect that this marker in part 2, given 14, is going to equal 19. So let's run this again. And marker, now we have to change this one to be 14. And if we run it again, okay, we have our tests are passing, and we get the answer is 2803. If we search, the puzzle answer was 2803. Awesome. So that is the solution for day 6. A couple of cool things here. Each cons, if you haven't already seen it, go check it out. And then find index is just going to detect and return when the block matches as it's iterating over the indices. So that's helpful and handy. If you're curious, again, like I would just crack open IRB and play around with A is, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can say like A.each cons 2.2a. And so that'll give you like, okay, that's the first 2. And then 2, 3, that's the second 2. And then 3, 4, that's the third group of 2, the third pair. You can play around with this each cons idea. It's actually like a pretty useful method here, right? Like you can slice things up in a few different ways, and it lets you look at like a sliding range of values. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate your time and attention, and we'll see you next time.